Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting on March 8th, 2022. I know, right? If you could be quiet in the room, please. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for the February 8, 2022 regular meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Communications from the audience for items that are not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. The items that do have a public hearing, where anyone from the public can speak on, have an asterisk next to them, and you will have an opportunity to speak on that item. If there's anything else outside of those that you would like to speak on, you can come forward at this time. No. There is no unfinished business at this time. And moving on to new business. Letter A, 13 West 4th Street, request to rezone the property from form-based code north downtown to industrial for future facility expansion at West Rock. If the applicant would like to come forward and speak on this, please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Sean Bates with Dan Boss, the civil engineer.
Emery Cavaskill, General Manager, West Rock.
Thank you.
13 West 4th Street.
Yeah, let's just give an introduction. You know, West Rock is.
If you could speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all
Same.
recorded.
West Rock has been in the planning process for their new Baylor addition for some time now. And this rezoning request came after a conversation with the city planner, finding out that West Rock was rezoned to north downtown form-based code. So that request was submitted with the intention to have it rezoned back to industrial. So this project can happen. And Emery, the general manager, wants to give kind of a, you know, the reasoning behind the project and the purpose it'll serve.
Yeah, so with this project scope, basically our main focus is a sustainability project. So we're looking to upgrade some equipment that does all our recycling. The addition itself is actually small. We're proposing we demo 900 square feet and put up an additional 2,300 square feet, or net of 1,400 square feet. This addition is kitty corner to the digester, right across from the water treatment center. And this is the only addition we ever plan to do to this property. So the premise is that we would be temporarily rezoned to industrial, and then once the project is complete, we would move forward to rezone back to north form-based code.
Kind of talking through that comment, you know, that's just so you know where we're at in the process. So we did have the workshop, the rezoning workshop last Friday, and that was largely the consensus was everyone was okay with this project and thought it would be an improvement to the aesthetic and noise as well. And you know, everyone was on board with the project, but didn't like the idea of permanent rezoning. So that's why West Rock is, you know, more than willing to work with the city and you know, put anything in writing to allow this project to move forward.
Is there anything else you'd like to speak on that is on the screen? They're on the screen, right? The project is?
Yeah. Can we go to the second slide there?
I was going to say, is that entire block owned by West Rock?
The entire block is owned.
Okay.
Yep. And it's actually, we've been in that block since 1950s. It used to be Steckity Van Ice. It's just under a new name
Sure.
now, but
Gotcha.
same company. So the proposal is there's a cyclone
If you guys
on
could
top.
speak into the microphone. Is it on, Mark? Can you check?
It looks like
There's a green light.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
So
It's
there,
just not
currently
as
there's a
loud.
cyclone. In the picture, it's painted orange and blue. Right now, it's actually gray. Proposal is to take the majority of that down. And then the new technology we'd like to house inside the building. So on the right-hand side of that picture, you'll see what the what the new building proposal would look like. So much less of an industrial look. And then we'll also have 2 service doors there, which will allow us to trade out those trailers that we use for the recycling in a more effective and efficient way, as opposed to only having 1 trailer door. So, and we are reviewing some of the traffic patterns with the City Planning Commission as well.
Yeah, and in support of that, we have met with the city departments to talk about the preliminary site plan. I know that isn't the focus of this meeting. I know the rezoning is obviously the big first step to make sure the project can happen, but we want to let you know we have been talking to the city departments to make sure we get a plan together that's acceptable and compliant.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stephen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, let me just add a few, if you don't mind. So, it's already been mentioned a couple times, but I thought I'd repeat it. This is for the rezoning. This isn't for the site plan. Obviously, the site plan that you saw up on the screen is what has triggered this. That small addition that you see is up in that upper right-hand corner of the site. That's what kind of has triggered this whole process. But they need to figure out the rezoning part of it first. As a form-based code, the North Downtown District, the industrial use simply isn't permitted, so an addition isn't allowed. It is what we would call legal non-conforming right now, and as such, an addition to this building wouldn't be permitted. So there certainly will be an opportunity, if it's rezoned, for us to kind of work through it'll be an administrative staff review for the staff to work through some of the details of the site plan. It's really just the hearing for the rezoning, so kind of an up or down vote. There's no conditions to a rezoning. You know, you vote or give your recommendation to City Council, yes or no. So as I mentioned, when we adopted UDO, we rezoned this piece of property. We'll skip down a little bit to the North Downtown District. Just describing this map real quick. Everything in the yellow is in the form-based code North Downtown. So kind of just working our way around the site, kind of from the top of the screen. That gray is the industrial. That's the industrial zone. That's the water treatment facility. Kind of working our way counterclockwise to the left. There's some office there, along with some city-owned property where we do have a substation for utilities. That is in the North Downtown District. Directly to the west of this site is also some additional office, commercial space. And then you've got, further to the west of that, you've got some property owned by the city again. And at kitty corner, or maybe in the 7 o'clock, you've got some commercial right there on the corner. And then behind that is the industrial property of Padnos. That's in the gray. Directly to the south of this site is some commercial office space. There's some fitness facility in there, and then some residential actually to that south and east on this site. And then east, again, you see some more North Downtown zoning. That yellow is the radio station, and then some vacant property sort of in that 4 o'clock position. So that kind of gives you sort of the lay of the land out there and the zoning of that area. One of the things that we ask in the form-based code district is that if it's in the DDA, that they go meet with the DDA to get their comments and recommendations. You've got that in your packet. They met with them on March 1st. A little bit like what you heard already with the workshop that they had with the neighbors. I think generally there was some support of their addition. There was just concern of sort of this idea that while if it was industrial, is that not compliant with the long-term vision of the cities. So you've got those comments in your packet as well. So what I want to show you here is this is the future land use plan for the city. service area. So this is the future land use plan. This is the guide we use to talk about rezoning. So when we developed Udo, it's not a big surprise that when we did all those rezonings with Udo, we had this area put into that north downtown zoning district, with the exception really of moving to that property in that essential service area, pretty consistent with the future land use plan. So as staff looked at this, and our suggestion was that they do this rezoning, one of the things that we looked at was, well, you've got the surrounding property, the zoning of the surrounding property to the north. You do have that water treatment facility. We've got an existing industrial user here. I think my comment in the staff report is simply, maybe the broad brush that we did with the Udo rezoning was maybe just a little bit premature for this specific piece of property, and maybe keeping it at industrial to allow them to do their addition would be more appropriate. I don't think that means that we're giving up on our future land use plan. It would still be in that north downtown area for our future plans, and that someday down the road, if they wanted to change that, they certainly could. I don't know if the Padnos property here is a good example of that, but certainly that is in that waterfront master plan. It is still zoned industrial. So that's a little bit of at least my thought process on the DDA's comments. I don't think we're giving up on that future vision down there. I just see it being a much longer term of where this piece of property would eventually flip over to that north downtown district. They have commented that they're willing to do their addition and then rezone it back to north downtown. Certainly that is their prerogative. I remind you that that isn't a condition that we could put on them. It's certainly something that if they wanted to do that after they did their addition, they could do that. I would agree with them that the site is full, so there really isn't a whole lot more it appears that can actually be done on this piece of property. Because I think that was really one of the other concerns even that the DDA expressed was, what else might happen here. So our recommendation is that you forward that recommendation to the city council, that you would allow it to be rezoned to industrial to the city council.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. At this time, this does require a public hearing, correct?
Yes.
And we will open,
I have a
Oh,
question. I've got a
sure,
question for
sorry.
Steve first.
yeah.
Steve, are there, not with this body, but are there variants or special exceptions opportunities for this project where we wouldn't have to go through a full rezoning? I mean, I know they'd have to go through a Board of Appeals for that, but
Yeah, that's a fair question. If there were some other avenues, we wouldn't be here.
okay. That's the answer I was curious about is, okay.
Not a question other than a comment. This makes my stomach hurt to think of an existing industrial company who can't expand because we're rezoning and we're making them jump through all these hoops. So my question is, are there other pieces of industrial property that we rezoned that, I know we did all the notices, but really could prevent companies from expanding and growing? It sounds like this company's even gonna be more efficient and effective as a result of this investment. And I don't think it sends a great sign about the city's, embracing industrial employers. And I'm hoping this is just an anomaly and not one of many.
Well, even though it wasn't a question, I'm gonna try to. So, I know I put it in the staff report, I likened it a little bit to some of the fine tuning we've been doing with the text amendments. So my long answer is gonna be, I wouldn't be surprised if we find a few other areas where we want to do some fine tuning with the zoning map. Again, similar to what we've been doing with the text amendments. So, although I don't have a direct answer to you that I know of or don't, yes or no, whether or not there's other industrial properties, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're, refining a few more properties
Is that something that staff could look into to see if there are other industrial properties with employers looking to expand that might face this same hurdle?
And it's, and that's something we tried to do our best as part of the Udo process, is we looked at every single lot along the way. I agree with you, Steve. I think we're likely to come up with other areas along the way where we went, oh, we were thinking one thing here, and property owners thinking about doing something differently there. Do we need to adjust? And I like the text amendment analogy to it, that it was a big document, a long 3-year process. So I wouldn't be surprised if we heard more of these. But I think that we kind of went through that process as part of Udo, is looking and going, where do we think we are on this?
I was gonna say, in my comment, Udo was the broad stroke, and yes, there will be exceptions like this, and yes, there will continue to be exceptions like this, but you
Well-
have to take the broad stroke, and then you can, like we're doing today, make adjustments.
And we were planning for the future,
Right.
right? And there may be companies in this area that want to expand, and we can look at each of them individually. Yeah. Any other questions or comments for the applicant or staff? No? All right. At this time, I will open the public hearing on this item for letter A, 13 West 4th Street, for the rezoning. Okay, no public comment. I will close the public hearing. And if the planning commission would like to make a motion or have further discussion?
I've just got a couple of comments before
Mhm.
we do motions on this. Jen, I'm with you on this. This didn't make my stomach hurt, but it made me cringe a little bit. Then I went, ooh, I think we missed on this with Udo. I like your analogy, Dave, of broad stroke and go back and fine tune, and that's exactly why bodies like this are here, is to take a look at the rules that we've laid out and said, are there places where those rules don't necessarily apply appropriately? Is this an area where a change needs to be made, or an exception? Is it something that we missed when we were looking at the generalities, and now we're looking at the specifics and going, maybe this is an area where there needs to be a change made. That when the idea of rezoning and then making the change, doing the project and then rezoning back again makes me cringe as well. I don't like that as a process. I don't at all. I'm not going to discourage the property owner from going that route if this ultimately makes it all the way through there, but it's not a practice I would like to offer to property owners down the line. That's not what we're doing here. What we would be doing here is rezoning this to industrial. It's then industrial, and we don't have an ability on our end to be able to move that back again. So we need to be very careful about how we go about that process and the decision that we make here. But having said all of that, I think that this is if this isn't the definition of what I think we need to look at and revisit a decision that we made, I'm not sure what would fall into that category. Mm-hmm. I would be inclined to approve the rezoning, knowing very well that the property owner does not have any obligation to rezone it back again. I'd love to see this continue to be part of that North Downtown vision, but I would also like West Rock to be able to stay there and continue to use this property in this manner as long as they would like to. And if they want to reduce noise and other issues in that area, I'm all for that as well. I think that that's fantastic. But I'll hold off on making a motion on this, and if other commissioners want to say something about it.
I would also like to speak to that, because I do like their vision, because they in fact incorporated our vision for what we thought that lot might be. And yes, I've walked down there to watch the construction of that new burper down there, but, so yes, I know exactly where this building is. And I like the idea that River Avenue might have an apartment on it someday in the new, what do we call it? North Downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, if we can do both, I wish we could do both today. But I do understand the need for making it industrial today.
I'll make a motion
Okay,
to send the staff's recommendation to city council.
I'll support that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Great, thanks for coming in, guys. Yeah. Next item in the agenda is 1269 East 16th Street and 313 Country Club Road. Request to rezone 313 Country Club Road and partially rezone 1269 East 16th Street from low-density residential, LDR, to high-density residential, HDR. And the applicant, if you'd like to come forward at this time. How do you pronounce that? Is it just Merck? Am I
Oh.
saying Mark?
Oh, it's MRK2
Okay.
LLC. Yeah, sorry.
It just says MRK, so I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, that's just a holdover. Those are my dad's initials.
Gotcha.
It's from a while back. Anyways, my name is J.R. Kendall. Thanks for having me again. My company is Kendall Property Group. And as you all know, we were the developers of the Shoreline Flats project on 16th Street. Today I'm here to talk about our plans for the second phase, I guess, of this project. We'll call it Shoreline 2. If we could, next slide. We had the same development team as we did on Shoreline Flats. We're also the general contractors for the project. And then Naderveld Engineering's our civil engineer, and then Weaver Sherman out of Indianapolis is our architectural firm. If we could, next. Just a quick overview of the project. As it is now, we have 239 units with 85 one-bedroom units, 121 two-bedrooms, and 33 three-bedroom units. The buildings are, I mean, to anybody that hasn't gone through the plans, the buildings will look almost exactly the same as the first phase. There are a couple little tweaks, but nothing that's noticeable to the eye. The one thing we have done is we've split one of our big two bedrooms in our bigger they used to be 18-unit buildings, now they're 19-unit buildings, so that we're able to offer a smaller one-bedroom unit that will hopefully offer another price range in our lineup of units. Also with this project, we won't have the big 28-unit corner buildings that you've seen at the first project. So this project will be made up of 9 of the 19-unit buildings, and then I think it's 5 of the smaller buildings. For parking, we have 478 spaces, 108 attached garages underneath in the buildings, and then 30 detached garages in 4 different standalone buildings. Bike parking, we've got, I think, 100. We count the garages as a one space per, or one bike parking space. So we have 138 of those, and then underneath our stairwells, we're using inside our kind of the cane rail that there's always been this void under our stairs. We've had our railing maker create bike racks that will store another 64 bikes under our stairwells and doors. Community amenities. Well, as I said, first the buildings. I just had a couple pictures of the buildings. Those are the same buildings we're using. So, and then community amenities. We'll have the full amenity package just as we did in the first phase. Clubhouse will have 24-hour fitness center, 24-hour business center, pool with the sun deck, automated package room, and dog park and playground outside. Our residents from both projects will be able to use either facilities as they'd like. As the units, they'll have the same features as the first phase with, we've got 13 different floor plans. So our square footage range is from 564 feet to 1449. They're open concept apartments with, LVT flooring and 9-foot ceilings, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, walk-in closets, and every unit has a washer and dryer. Most of them are full size. There's, I think, one unit that has a stack. It's just- And then I guess we can move on to the new part of this. I'd like to kind of start with an overview of the site plan. Currently, our main entrance comes off of 16th Street. You enter, and to the left there's a 19-unit building and also an 11-unit building. Then you go up about a 10-foot grade to a plateau where the 7 buildings are all oriented around the detention pond. And then we've got 3 of the kind of separate buildings to the west that are oriented around the wetlands areas, so that the buildings really have kind of a wooded view. And then we have the 4 two-story buildings at the back of the property. As you'll notice with this plan, we have about a 150-foot barrier of wetlands area between our closest building and the houses along Country Club Road. And then we also have our 180-foot buffer zone between our north buildings and the homes to the north of us. And then in that area, we plan to build between a 12 to 15-foot berm that will also provide more buffer zone between us and the neighbors. And then if we could go. So I just wanted to kind of give a little explanation of how we got here. We started off with this plan, and I apologize, it's oriented wrong, but the first plan, we had 200 apartments, and this was in the very rough stages over a year ago. And then we came up with 27 single-family lots on the low-density portion of the property. And then the next plan, as we refined that, we found out that the streets had to be a little wider than we thought, and so that reduced the number of single-family to 16. We were looking into this, and that was about the time when construction costs started kind of going out of control. We figured, this is would be a new product for us, and it was hard enough just to build what we already knew how to build and knew the costs, and so we just decided that we would move everything down to the high density area, and either leave the north low density area for a future use, and didn't really know which direction that would go. Around that time, I think I had come up and just done one of the study sessions, and then we found out that our secondary entrance going out to Country Club Road would require rezoning. So that kind of stopped our path of trying to go for just the high density area. Also at that time, we got back our first determination from Eagle on our wetlands, and the questions that they were asking about, our building placement and so on, led us to believe that they weren't going to approve our wetlands mitigation plan as it was. So since we were having to go back, we would have to go for the rezoning for the entrance. We decided to take some buildings and move them up into the low density area. And in doing so, our intent was to be mindful and try to keep them as close to the high density area as possible. And then we can go on to the final plan. So that got us back to this plan that we're at now. On November 30th, I had the neighborhood outreach meeting. We had a lively discussion, and it went on for a while, and I heard the usual concerns with apartments, and I understand them all. I think what came out of that meeting was that our neighbors would really like to see less building height, so we agreed to cut those back 4 buildings down to 2-story buildings. That cuts kind of the average peak height of the roof, I think, down to, I believe it's 27 feet. And then we would agree to build the berm behind us and also to plant trees on it so that it acted as a buffer between us and the neighbors. And like I said, that's a 184-foot deep area. Something else that happened in the meantime was we got a call from the Leroy family that owns the lot and the single-family home between us and Meadow Lodge, and we were able to come to a deal with them and have since purchased those properties and placed that other building there. So in the end, we think that this plan, you know, we think it provides kind of the most efficient use of the property, and it also is doing the best we can to stay out of all the wetlands. I believe we're affecting it's less than a half acre. It's about 4.7 acres. So, and in this, at the same time, our goal was to create this buffer zone between us and the neighbors so that, you know, we're conscious of not being right up in their backyards. And with that, I can answer any questions.
You mentioned that there was a playground. I am not seeing that on here.
Yeah, I have not located it on the plan yet, but it will be there.
In what general region were you thinking?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. I see that there's connections of all the sidewalks to all the buildings, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we also did add in, we connected, I believe it's around kind of the corner, yeah, connected. I think it's building 11 and 12 there. There was a concern raised at the last meeting about the connectivity there.
Any other questions from commission members?
Can you talk a little bit more about the entrance off of Country Club? I feel like I was reading somewhere that was a maintenance and emergency vehicle.
Well, we discussed that. I believe that, you know, we would be open to making it emergency only. I think that the comments I've had back from the planning department is that they'd rather it be used as a secondary entrance. And
I think we had talked about that because it was so high density that we didn't like there only being one entrance and exit off of 16th Street per traffic issues. We had talked about that here, hadn't we?
well,
Well,
above 200 units, we're required to have 2
Yeah.
entrances. So.
Yeah, I think my concern, and I think others were concerned about the proximity to those 2
Mhm.
single-family homes. And does that run through wetland also? I don't know much
It does go
about
through a
wetland.
wetland,
Okay.
yes.
And so you can do that for a certain portion of wetlands?
Yeah, according to our wetlands consultants, Eagle looks, as far roadway, they don't consider roadways to have as much impact as buildings. So as opposed to putting
I
a
see.
building there, they would be more likely to approve a roadway through there. And we, as far as Eagle goes, we are in our public notice period right now, so in about 25 days, I think the public comment period will be over, and we should have a ruling from them as far as our mitigation plan.
Steve, is that roadway set back where it's supposed to be?
It is.
Okay. What are the setbacks for a roadway on a property?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have setbacks for the road. We
Okay.
require some landscaping requirements, so it's kind of a function of that more than setbacks. So
Okay.
they have those things in
Okay,
And I would assume that that is more aligned with the road that's across the street, essentially, to make sure that that is in keeping.
Exactly, yeah, it lines up with, to make it a 90-degree intersection, yeah.
any other questions or comments from commission members?
So with the berm on
Mhm.
those, and I appreciate that you've made, I read that someone had requested two-story buildings, so I appreciate you making that accommodation. So with the berm, will that eliminate any light heading north from the parking lot to the houses on the north?
Yeah, I don't believe, the only lights that we will have in the back, we have 2 detached garages back there, so we will have wall packs on those garages going back towards our property.
Okay.
And then our buildings, those garages will have wall packs, but they're, they're at header height above the garages. And we've submitted our photometric plan, and we'll be sure that no light escapes.
Thank you.
There's 2 sets of garages, correct?
Yes.
One
Well, there's the building garage underneath the building,
right.
and then there are 2.
I guess I was talking just on the north end of the property by the berm. There's
Yes.
2 sets.
2
And then
sets.
there's 2 open spaces of just parking lots, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But the berm would go above where those headlights would hit when they're pulling into those parking spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Steve?
I've got a few slides to maybe go through that
Okay.
might actually help some of the line of questioning,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Yep.
Thank you. Just real quickly, let's run through some of, maybe some of the zoning particulars as well. So you've seen this now a couple times. This is our site plan that we are talking about. You've mentioned that we are, the request is for the site plan and the rezoning. So the rezoning is for this piece that serves on the driveway out to Country Club is a separate piece of property, so that's the Country Club address that's in your packet. And then the 1269 address that we're using to identify the project is really the bulk of the property that we've got here, with the exception of those couple pieces that he mentioned that he purchased additionally down on 16th Street. So the other piece of property that's rezoned is just this northern, about 170 feet of the 1269 East 16th Street. So those are the 2 properties when we talk about the rezoning. So hopefully that helps. As he's mentioned, this is really the second phase of their project from just a little bit further down the street. We've got 239 apartments and 16 different buildings going up on about 22 acres. You guys have talked about it already a little bit. The wetland areas, you look closely at the plan, it was probably illustrated a little bit better on some of the stuff he has shown already, but sort of these darker wooded areas on the site are what I would generally describe as those wetland areas that they have been designing around. So that has certainly been one of their challenges. Access to the site that you guys have hit on has certainly been an issue that they've needed to work around, figure out. They have done the traffic study. Our city engineer is reviewing that as we speak. But what has come out of it so far looks, I guess, what I would just describe as normal or doable. There isn't any showstoppers in there. That report does analyze that both of these driveways, Country Club and 16th Street, would be full movement. So there wouldn't be any restrictions on it just being fire access or anything like that. And I know our city engineer really likes the idea of people being able to get out onto Country Club to be able to get to the light that's out at 16th Street and Country Club. So although it is certainly at least in the traffic report, a lesser movement than 16th Street, specifically, you also see, you look closely, you see a center turn lane being introduced at their entrance. You know, that is part of the analysis as well. Our engineers supportive of that as well. There is a challenge with that. As you guys know, 16th Street already has a couple other center turn lanes. So you got the center turn lane there at Country Club, you would have this one, and then you would have the one a little bit further down the street at Quarter Line. Our engineer has been, you know, wanting whatever improvements happen to sort of happen all together at once. He doesn't want the what I would describe as the hourglass effect, where you go in and out of these with center turn lanes. He would like it to be one contiguous center turn lane. So if approved, there would need to be some coordination with our engineer to figure out how to install that so it's put in once, so to speak. That is on the plan as well. Zoning, so let's talk about that real quick. It's already been hit on. So our city attorney has given us the opinion that access to the site for the apartment project, since that's a use allowed in the HDR zone, would require that their driveway, their second driveway out to Country Club, be rezoned into the HDR district to provide access to the HDR project. So you can see here on this map, this is a copy of our zoning map. The green obviously is the subject property. And you can see where that HDR zoning line stops right now is really at that piece of property that provides access out to Country Club. The developer does own that piece of property, but it would need to be rezoned to be able to get access out there. So as a result of some of the things that they've talked about already, they are asking to rezone not only that piece, but to go just a little bit further north. Sorry, this is a little bit different scale, but just sort of giving you the whole picture from Waverly to Quarter Line in this area, picture of the zoning map. So hopefully you can pick out there with the aerial, the piece with the arrow, the piece of property that is also being requested to be rezoned. So that's the extension of that about 170 feet of that HDR zoning district. So, you know, rather than just providing access to Country Club with that one lot, you know, they're bumping up that HDR line to accommodate those 4 buildings that were shown across the northern part of the site plan. So again, these are those 4 buildings. These are the areas that need to be rezoned. What's happening with the rest of that property to the north? It is certainly part of the piece of property that is being developed, but their proposal is to leave it alone. They've mentioned that it would be a berm. So you can see on here, there is that, again, kind of talking about grading a lot tonight with these elevation lines. So there's a big hill that goes up about 12 to 15 feet that accommodates that berm, and then they landscape it. So that area would be left alone, and their proposal, which we have received a copy of, are to deed restrict that area so that it wouldn't be developed. So it wouldn't be like, and I think those were maybe some of the comments that they even heard in the workshop group, was the neighbors was, well, you know, that's the plan now, but, you know, somebody would, you know, develop it later. So their proposal, the developer's proposal, is to put a deed restriction on there so nothing would happen to that piece of property. That is certainly something that the city attorney, we would want them to look at to make sure that that language is done properly, and to be something that we would certainly be, I guess I'll say, a part of if there was anybody ever wanting to change that. So just a little bit on that as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about this berm, or I just gave you a picture of it here. So if you're looking at this left to right, the left is kind of that existing subdivision to the north of the site. You've got this big berm as you go south, and you see the car kind of representing where the parking and those garages that you were talking about, where those would be located, and then this 2-story building. So again, that was the response from some of the neighbors to lower those northernmost buildings can kind of get the sense here from a sightline perspective, if you're standing at the back of those property lines to the north, looking at this, you might see the top of these garages, but that berm would certainly hide quite a bit. And again, the berm being 15 feet tall, we limit lighting to no more than 20 feet tall. If you're within 200 feet of a residential property, all of their lighting on their site is 20 feet. If it's on the little poles, their wall packs that they talked about, the lights that they stick on the walls, those are even lower than 20 feet. So all of them are under the 20 feet. I would say in regards to lighting, probably one of the big changes that you would visually see with this site versus versus the site down the street, those wall pack lights on the project that's existing out at Quarterline don't have some of the screening on the lights, so some of that light actually goes out. I know you see quite easily if you're going down 16th Street in the dark, that light goes out. So the new lights all go down, including the wall pack lights. So they're those cutoff type lights that you would see, maybe in the parking lot on the poles. So that's quite a bit different. I guess I just point that out because I know that has been some of the comments from the workshop as well. So all of those lights are now going down and none of them are going out, and they're low and hidden behind the berm as well. Again, just some kind of cross sections of those areas as well, so you can see where that berm is. And then for the rezoning, for our land use plan. So this is a picture of the future land use plan. In this yellow area is what we would describe as suburban residential. So really all of the area from Country Club all the way to Quarterline is in that suburban residential area. I showed you the zoning map already that sort of gives you that bigger picture from Waverly all the way to Quarterline. So that property has already been rezoned to HDR, the majority of the subject property, with the exception of this extension going north. And really, when you look at it, everything from Waverly to Quarterline, that HDR really goes all the way up to the existing subdivisions that are to the north, with the exception of this piece and the church that's immediately to the east of this piece. These are really the only two areas where that HDR line doesn't go all the way to the existing subdivisions to the north. You've gotten, I know I gave you quite a few comments from all of the different city departments. Again, I wouldn't describe anything in there as unusual. You've already hit on a couple of them. We've talked about it with, you probably read in there, the fire department is really the one that requires that second access as a result of there being more than 200 units. That second access is required from the fire code. We talked a little bit about the lighting, and you can see they meet all of the UDO requirements in terms of setbacks and all of those things. So if the rezoning were to go and the site plan were to be approved as shown, they're meeting all of those requirements. It's been designed to meet all of those as well. I think that's wrapping up my comments. So at least in terms of the staff recommendation, we are recommending the approval, or your recommendation to City Council, to approve the rezoning of that piece of property on Country Club and the extension of that rezoning 170 feet north, and then approval of the site plan with the conditions that we've noted in the staff report, and then certainly that they would have to get City Council approval of the rezoning as well.
Great, thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any questions
I do.
from Steve? Yes?
I do.
Is it about a particular
it's about a particular driveway coming off of 12th Street. If you extend 12th Street to the east, it looks like that neighbor's driveway is actually sitting on this parcel. And are we looking at that correctly? Is that an encroachment on this parcel? Not that that necessarily makes a difference on the rezoning, but that ties into my question of, has 12th Street been gridded out to extend to the east there? Or has Country Lane as well to continue those city block grids? Or is that just a possible?
You're asking if the property that's being proposed to be developed is graded out?
No, gridded out. So does 12th Street actually extend, even though it doesn't physically, does it actually extend to the east there of Country Club?
It does not.
Okay. And I'm assuming Country Lane does not either.
It does not either, but as has already been mentioned, I mean, certainly, you know, if you're gonna introduce a new driveway, a new curb cut like this, you know, you would want to align that, directly across.
Okay. So if a developer wanted to do a series of single-family homes on in that space that's labeled here as LDR zone, they could extend 12th Street out and put single-family homes along
And I
there.
think that's what you saw on some of the drawings that the developer showed you as they went through their different, you know, proposals or ideas. That's exactly what you saw with some of that access coming in that spot as well.
Okay. Okay.
But just to clarify, they own part of that person's driveway?
So I would assume that that person has an easement, you know, to use that
Okay.
piece of property.
Okay. Just found that interesting.
Yeah.
That's the chunk of piece, that's the piece that we're talking about, that
Mhm.
the developer is willing to put a deed restriction on there that nothing would happen there.
Right.
What exists currently across Country Club Road from where this new street will come out onto it?
Country Lane,
Country Lane.
you
Country
mean?
Lane.
Yeah, Country Lane, it looks like,
This is Country Lane.
no, it
No,
goes
Country
east to
Club.
west.
Country Club and Country Lane intersect at that spot.
Yep.
Right, Country Lane tees across
Look.
Country Club.
Gotcha, okay, from the east,
Yes.
Yeah.
and we're just gonna continue west.
So they're gonna line up perfectly, yes.
That was my
That's what
question.
their goal was, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right.
Steve answered them.
Steve answered them. That's great. Thanks, Steve. At this time, I will open a public hearing. If you are here to comment on the rezoning or the site plan, now is your time to speak on that. You will have 5 minutes for your comments. Please state your name and address for the record when you come forward. And I will just put my hand up when you have a minute left.
Hi, I'm Kim, Kelly LaFata. I live at 1220 Hearthstone Court. I have some very real concerns about the wetlands that are between the berm that is on the plan and the backs of our homes. If you're looking, it's hard for me to see with my glasses. If you're looking right now, if you see the swimming pool at the top that is in the back of one of the yards, my home is 2 houses to the west of that. And the wetlands happen to be right behind my home. So I have a fenced yard. The wetlands are right beyond that. And I actually brought pictures of what the back of our house looks like currently. If you guys want them, I'll just hand them out and you can keep them. February 16th, when we had a thaw, we flooded for 25 years. Our basement has flooded 4 times. I have this pack of stuff that's gone on with the city. But putting a berm up there and having wetlands that I'm guessing we cannot drain is gonna push more water into my backyard, presumably into my basement, also the 2 abutting neighbors at least. And so I have some very real concerns about putting in these apartments, changing it to high-density residential, and putting in a berm that might trap water in that area. I guess the other issue I would say is I think that the proposed plan sounds good, and I was at the original November meeting. I even came to the planning session that you guys had in December. We can propose whatever we want, but if we change it to high-density residential, my concern is what will happen. What's gonna happen with the berm, what's gonna happen with the wetlands, what's gonna happen with our backyards. I've been in that home for 26 years, and we have had some significant water problems that we've never been able to come to an agreement with the city about, including an excavating plan that we proposed with Unima Excavating one year that the city turned down. So now what do? Do I just wait for the basement to flood again when this goes in and hope? Or do I try to sell my home like my neighbors did, and then someone buys it and then they're left with this problem? So it's a concern. It's something that I would prefer not to see rezoned. I would prefer to see some sort of plan that addresses the water that ends up in our backyards, those of us who abut it. But do you want to see the pictures of what our yard looks like? Should I hand them off to anyone?
Steve, will you handle that, please?
Sure. I also took pictures this morning and printed them out so that you could just see what it normally looks like.
Did you have anything else? You still have 2 minutes, so that's why I was asking.
I think I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you so much, though.
Thank you very much. Now is your chance.
Yeah, you don't have to ask me twice. It's a nice complex, sir. Take it someplace else.
Please address the planning commission, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, okay, fine. I agree with her 100% what's going to happen to their backyard.
Can
My
you
name
state-
is Lauren
oh, sorry.
Holcomb. I live
Thank
at
you.
1193 Wellington Road, Holland, Michigan, for 32 years. And across the street from my property, when it really rains, the water comes down across my neighbors up in front of me and comes across the street. Well, you folks at the city evidently had some people complain about the sidewalk on that side of the street freezing with all the water on it. So you came in and dug and put a tile in what I call your tree lawn that you folks own. That didn't work. It still comes down the hill, comes across the street. Anyway, I'm thinking 200 and some units, right, sir? 2 cars per unit for sure. Everybody's got to work 2 jobs, 2 families, whatever, and that just doubles the traffic, 400 and some cars. And you're talking about coming out onto Country Club. Certain times of the day, Country Club's pretty quiet. Other times of the day, Country Club isn't quiet. So when you tell me there's not going to be a traffic issue, I don't buy that one iota. None. Now, I've seen big cities, I've seen a lot of complexes, and I'll tell you what'll happen down the years, long after this guy's gone. Instead of calling it home flats, you can call it Skid Row, because when he gets to a certain point that he knows the roof is gone, the air conditioners are gone, the furnace is gone, he's going to flip it. The next guy that takes it, he may not take real good care of it, so the people that are living there, the good folks, they kind of move out, buy homes, do whatever, and God bless them. But here comes another type of person that rents that apartment. It doesn't stay the same over time, folks. It changes. Everything changes constantly. And a little old Holland, when I came here, was a sleepy little town on the coast. Well, it's not a sleepy little town anymore. Unfortunately, and I'm not going to name names, but to the south of us, the north of us, and to the east of us. If you watch the news, those folks in those other towns, and you know the ones I'm talking about, every night there's something going on them. Thank God we don't have it yet. But we keep building stuff like that, we will. So have at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Brookhouse. I live on 1247 Hearthstone Court. I have a really big issue with changing the high density, or the low density to high density. I don't see any kind of reason for that at all. Holland Heights has had its fair share of apartments and has had them for 30-plus years. I taught at Holland Heights Elementary for 20 of those 30 years. And like Larry said, what starts out as a lovely high-end apartment, like the Abbey Court Ridgeland Height apartments started out as, are no longer. We are trying to protect our property values. That little strip in there that you're proposing to change to high density is a budding Hearthstone Court. We are a very tiny little area that has pretty much been utopia for 30 years, but we're at a very, very precarious position in Holland Heights. And our neighbors on 12th Street have had their property values decrease. We have been very lucky to maintain our property values, but as we are going to be getting this high-density property right in our backyard, this does not bode well for us. And most of us have lived here for 30 years. We've built our houses, we've lived here for 30 years, and we don't need any more apartments in Holland Heights. And I get the fact that we need more apartments, we need more housing in Holland, Michigan, but there are many other places, you know, I mean, a lot of people say not in my backyard. We have it in our backyard. We've had it in our backyard for 30 years. Tons and tons of apartments, hundreds and hundreds of apartments. This is a huge, huge development for 200 and some more apartments to go into the Holland Heights area when we have hundreds of them already. So if nothing else, keep the high density, don't change that low density to high density, don't change that access point. We are a very, very precarious little area, and we're gonna really plummet on our property values. And Holland Heights is a very affordable area right now, and we don't want that to go down even farther. And so I ask you that you do not change that high density, or the low density to high density. And then we do have an issue with lighting. I still feel like if you drive by the 16th Street complex, the City Flats, or I'm sorry, whatever, I can't remember the name of it, very, very bright, extremely, extremely bright. That's gonna be right in our street, our quiet little street with hundreds of people and hundreds of apartments being built there. So lots and lots of issues, lots of people. Drainage is a huge issue. Light pollution is a huge issue. Even with the berm, we're still going to be able to see this looming thing over our street, our quiet little street. And so I'm just asking you that you do not approve that low density to high density. Minimum, that should not happen at all. And if we go back to that, you know, the picture that you showed, Steve, the giant one where there's all orange, 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 orange across. If you show that, I mean, look at that glaring orange, orange, orange. Tons and tons of apartments for years.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? We know exactly what you're talking about. We
Right.
have the screen in front of us. You have 30
Okay,
seconds.
so just, you know, if you take a look at that, orange, high density, let's not make it any more than what we have already. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh,
Yeah, let me go on. My name is Larry Horn. My wife and I live at 1248 Hearthstone Court, and we're the north side. Our backyard faces the facility, the back of the facility.
My concern is with the berm. I don't know what, it looks like they're gonna do some planting, but is there gonna be grass? What's gonna be on the berm? And like it's been said before, I've only lived there, we've been there just about 11 years now. And when it rains over an inch, the rain comes, I got a little berm that the people before me built, maybe a foot or two, but we get, fortunately, rain on both sides of our lot line because he did the berm, but I get ponds on both sides of my properties and the very back that goes towards their property. And I know when I talked to the guy before that lived there, he had the basement flood badly. This was probably in '08, and honestly, there was probably a whole bunch of flooding at that time. But I'm just concerned, you made a comment about something about the north side was gonna be for future projects, maybe. Does that include the berm is what I don't know. You know, you made mention, Steve, about the, that was not to be touched. That would be locked in. So like Sue said, we don't, I'm not sure what this berm is gonna look like. I'm not against the idea, but you know, it really 15 foot tall, but what's it covered with? Is nature just gonna make it weeds or whatever? We've looked at cornfields and so on for so long, but I just want those facts noted.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm very glad they did the two-story, and at least the berm is a good, maybe a good idea. I just don't know enough about it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Steve, was there a landscaping plan? You're fine. You can stand up there. That's fine. Just let me ask. Steve, was there a landscaping plan for that space? Just to answer that question a minute.
Yeah, the berm is part of the landscape plan, so you saw some evergreens, some pine trees on there. I don't think it, JR can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it details, you know,
Grass.
grass seed or
Okay.
something like that, but it would certainly have, you know, some sort of grass on it, but I don't think they detailed out, you know, what type of vegetation would just be
Okay.
on the berm itself, but it is landscape berm.
Okay. And then the clarification for the deed restriction?
Yes, that northern.
Is your microphone on?
Sorry. Yes, the northern, I think it's 184 feet, that area that would be left over as LDR would be some sort of deed restriction that the city attorney would have to approve. That language wouldn't be developed.
Okay.
So there couldn't be, you know, phase 3, so to speak, on that area, right?
Right.
That area would just be left.
It would be left alone.
It would be left alone other than, you know, creating the berm and the landscaping on the
Right.
berm.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Go
Hi.
ahead and state your name and address
Sorry.
for the record and speak into the microphone. I don't know if everybody knows this, but it's recorded, and so we just have to stay by the microphone.
Okay, my name's Kaylee Barman. I live at 1226 Hearthstone Court. I just moved in like a month ago with my fiance. This lovely development was not disclosed to us when we bought the home, so this was kind of a surprise we found out last week. So I guess my only concern is our house value, like depleting with having apartments in our backyard, and just from what our neighbors have told us, the amount of water they get, especially in the spring and summer, makes me a little nervous that our basements are gonna flood. We've obviously never experienced it, but just from hearing everyone saying we've been dealing with this water for a long time, we're worried about the berm. My dad's a landscaper, and I do know that sometimes the berms can cause the water to just run right off and into our backyard, which makes me extra nervous. And yeah, I'm just worried about the apartments eventually down the line maybe not being as high class or high luxury as they started. I am a nurse at Holland Hospital, and I take care of a lot of patients kind of on that 16th Street and the apartments further down. And I'm just worried about that eventually moving into our backyard. And we bought our house for a significant amount of money, so I just don't want to lose our property value this young. And I want a safe place to raise children eventually, God willing. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Doolittle, and I live on 1252 Hearthstone Court. We built our home 30 years ago, and I have the same concerns as everybody sitting here. We've had water, always. We have water issues. There was an issue with our builder, Kurt Saul, Hearthstone Development. I'm sure you know about his reputation and what he's done. That water runs like wild. I mean, it's like a flowing stream in the spring. It comes through our pool area, into our pool house, and sometimes it floods our basement. You can see it drips down the wall. So that is a huge concern. Sue's comment about changing low density to high density would be the worst thing you could do. The reason I say that is because I was friends with a girl who used to sit on the city council, and back when they did Stratford Way in those apartments, she said that was one of the worst decisions her council ever made. So I think you should take a look back in the history of the voting and what has happened. And Sue Brookhouse, the teacher, she talked about the children and how it went from, high end to lower, and just, it's a nice thought initially, but it changes. And that is the concern too. It's beautiful now, but what's gonna look like in 10 to 15 years? As far as the lights go, at our meeting in November, he talked about the concerns with the other development and that he was supposed to make some changes. Well, what month are we in? We're in March, nothing's happened. I can see those lights from my bedroom, and I live in Hearthstone Court. And the thing is our property values. We built those homes 30 years ago. Property values, it's not gonna help. I asked him point blank, how is this gonna improve our property values? And he couldn't answer me. So I just want you to know there are concerns, they're legitimate concerns. Put yourself in our shoes. If you built here 30 years ago, raised your family, and want to continue on, and especially with a girl that was just up here, just bought her home. I mean, these are things that we as city residents and you as city council members or commission, whatever you are, just take a look at from the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else to speak on this item?
Are we allowed to speak twice?
No. All right. At this time, I will close. Oh, one more.
We have no free speech.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Mary Timmer. I live at 295 Country Club Road. I just wondered if you got the letter from our neighbors to the south of us. She sent one to the Planning Commission. Of the Swartz?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
did? Okay,
Yep.
good. She's real concerned about that roadway coming off from the proposed development over across to the country lane. I don't know how much you allow for the roadway, but it'll bring that right up to their garage. And I'm also concerned about all the other issues here. The water, we know that those people have water problems. We have water problems, and we're on Country Club. I would strongly recommend that you vote no on this whole project. Okay?
Thank you. Okay. Oh,
My name's Aaron Messenger. I live at 319 Country Club Road. I'm the house that basically the road is going to be built right next to, and I still question. We've got garages on both sides of it. The lot's a very skinny lot. I don't know how they're gonna fit a road and everything they're gonna wanna fit in there right on top of both of our garages. And, you know, as far as that, and it, you know, cutting into the wetlands, I mean, you've heard everybody say, you know, it's causing flooding, all, you know, and how is a berm not gonna cause more flooding? I mean, it's just common sense. You build a big hill, water's gonna flow towards the lowest point. They already have a low point. And I don't think anybody's really mentioned how many animals. We've got birds, you know, I've seen owls, I've seen deer, I've seen rabbit, I've seen a lot of woodpeckers. There's a lot of wildlife there. Where are they gonna go, you know? And I'm hoping that you can vote against this as well. Everybody else has already said everything that needs to be said, you know? That's what I was thinking. Well, they've already said it, but I feel like I had to say something, and I just don't like the idea of that road being built. I see the apartment complex across the road, trash cans, and, you know, trash is constantly blowing down the road. The police are there at least at a minimum every other day. Apartments cause more crime. It's condensed areas. The more you condense the area, the higher the crime's gonna be. You know, these are things that have to be taken into consideration as well, I think. So that's all I have to say anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon Cruz. I live at 1234 Hearthstone Court. And I'm very concerned too about the number of apartments that are here. I'm thinking that if you approve this, you've also heard a lot of people concerned about the berm. I would hate to see you approve it and also take the berm away. I don't know what the answer is. I do know we all get water, but bringing the apartment buildings right back to our property line is not a good thing either. If that is what you're thinking maybe would solve water problem. That would really not be, you know, welcoming to us. So I don't know what a berm, you know, what the disaster of a berm is, but I would also, I'm afraid that if you approve it and then you take away the berm also, you know, then we're really in deep whatever. So, please think about all of these things, and the fact that I happened to come into the meeting just before this one and saw that there was another proposal for more apartments on 24th and Waverly. Come on, what about homes where people have a vested interest? They pay taxes, things like that.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from commission members?
I'm just looking at the plans and getting into more specifics, hearing so especially the concerns about the drainage pieces of the berm on that north side, and wondering if there's maybe a different approach or a kind of a compromise piece of this where there might be an opportunity to maybe help the drainage issues or at least mitigate some of those. I don't think that all of those can fall on the applicant's lap, because some of those are, you know, from your properties as well. But I wonder.
Excuse me, please don't comment in the audience. Please don't comment in the audience. Please don't, please don't.
So looking at the plans though, it does look like that water is funneling from most of the southern portion of the site to the north. So I say all this because I wonder if there's something further information or development that needs to happen as it relates to the you know, like the berm itself. The intent of the berm is to screen visually, but could potentially lead to other drainage issues that we need to, you know, think about as well. So I say that only to say that I totally understand and hear your concerns about the drainage issues on that side of the portion of the site, and I can definitely see where all that water is funneling to, and I think that that's something that needs to be considered.
Yeah,
I was thinking along the same lines. I mean, if in fact that 180 4-foot wide piece of property had a 3-foot drainage ditch and then a 15-foot berm, it would solve the issue. But that's just me thinking out loud.
Yeah, Steve, hold on.
Yeah.
Lynn had a question too, but, okay.
Sorry. I know, so part of the report you saw that the city engineer would require a stormwater permit, so that would certainly still need to be done to comply with all of our stormwater regulations. I know he has specifically talked about, you know, what I guess I'll call the back edge of the berm to make sure it doesn't make it worse. You know, Nate, I think you're right. You know, there's other issues going on that may not be able to be, you know, completely solved, but certainly, you know, meeting all of our requirements for the stormwater permit would be a big step in controlling, you know, the water on the site.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve, just for clarification, when the city engineer takes a look at that and looks at something like that berm, the city engineer is taking into consideration that drainage that may be caused, or that water movement that may be caused by the berm when doing the stormwater permit, correct?
Yeah, he's got to look at that. You know, the existing wetlands that are out there are part of that. You can't necessarily, you know, starve. You can't just drain all of that away either. So all of that has to get wrapped up into what those ultimate, you know, requirements and solutions are.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn, did you have a question?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, and I'd like to just kind of address the rezoning question. Could you bring up that yeah. So it's my memory when we were going through Udo is that we were trying to accommodate existing LDR so as not to create in fact, create a situation like we're facing today. So it's my memory that we decided to go with LDR down down Country Club Road because there were existing single-family homes. So I'm not inclined really to support a rezoning of that property because I think it goes against what we had intended to do with Udo and for this particular area. I appreciate the changes that you've made. I think that you have been a good developer for the community. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that this has absolutely nothing to do with the site plan. But I feel like in this particular case, while we have been making changes to Udo for text amendments and things like that. In fact, we did a rezoning conversation not too long ago, already today.
Mm-hmm.
I think for this one, I'm not inclined to support the rezoning for this particular piece of property.
Yeah, Lynn, I tend to lean the same way you do when I look at those 4 parcels that are along Country Club Road, getting cut off from the rest of it, only by a driveway. That causes me to pause as well. I was very impressed with the developer looking at that additional strip and saying, you know, hey, we're willing to put a deed restriction on that northern part of the parcel. I think that actually provides a great benefit for those folks that live to the north of that. But we've been very careful with this group about not making significant changes to the decisions that we made and we talked through as part of the Udo process. You know, I think what we talked about earlier today and the rezoning that we allowed today had to do with a parcel that would be continuing to use the same type of use that it had been for a long time, and that the change that we made in Udo would actually prevent them from being able to effectively continue that use. At least that's my take on that. This is something different. This is changing a use into something that would be a different type of use. And it does not prevent this developer from creating a different plan on the portion of the property that is already HDR. You could do that. Doesn't prevent this developer from taking the part of the property that's LDR and doing something with that as well. I want to make sure that the residents know that there is nothing that would prevent this developer from going in and putting a bunch of single-family houses in there. Maybe more houses, maybe more residents, maybe more cars than there would be with this development. That decision that we would make today if we decided not to vote for the rezoning would not prevent development of that LDR parcel. And it might not prevent development that wouldn't need to come to this body. There was a question from one of the members, hey, all we're hearing from the Planning Commission is about apartments. That's because not every development that goes on in the city needs to come to the Planning Commission. Apartment complexes tend to need to come to the Planning Commission because they require site plan reviews. And so those get a lot of press, but the ones where there are lots of houses that are being built, lots of single-family homes that are being built in Holland don't come through this process. But Lynn, I tend to lean the way you do. This to me feels like a change to what we were thinking through that UDO process and lines that we were trying as carefully as possible to draw. I like the idea if we chose to go along with this. I like the idea of the buffer because I think that creates a real benefit there. And then if the rest of the board disagrees with me on this, that's something that I would say we definitely need to do, but I'm inclined to say no to the rezoning on this portion.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have one question. The proposed rezoning to HDR, what is the acreage percentage there? Like how large, it maybe already answered this, how big is that piece?
I think that whole LDR piece right now is about 7 acres.
Oh, so it's pretty significant,
And,
okay.
the rezoning is 3, so it would leave 4 as
Steve,
LDR.
can you talk into your microphone, please?
Sorry. The whole LDR piece is about 7 acres. The piece being rezoned would be 3, and it would leave 4 left over as still LDR.
And the developer is proposing making that deed restricted so it is not buildable.
On the remaining LDR.
Right.
Correct.
Yes, so I think that's a large price to pay. And I think he's certainly with the berm, and if he can work with the neighbors to actually make the berm help them drain their leaky basements, that would be a benefit for the neighborhood. So I'm supporting rezoning this tiny section of property to make the rest of it developable.
I think the LDR zone at the very top, if there's a way maybe to put a detention basin that sucks some of the water away but doesn't take it away, like, not draining the whole wetlands, still having the wetlands, you could still have the water, but still have in the perfect world, we have, there's still a berm to protect from the lights. Because one way or the other, HDR is 170 feet further away, and it's gonna get developed one way or the other, I feel. Then the LDR, if we don't rezone it, could have houses built up right to there and cause more flooding. I don't know the right answer. I see a developer that's willing to work with the neighbors and try and mitigate some of this. I agree with Lynn on this, that I don't agree with having a island of LDR on Country Club Road. I don't think there's a perfect answer for us tonight. I think it's what's the best answer for the city in general. And I'm kind of torn both ways on it. I see it develop, and I don't know, if we say no to the HDR, then what happens next? I mean, what's the next step? Is we get a totally new site plan with more apartments on the wetland here, and he just makes a big detention pond and calls that wetlands to mitigate it, and we lose the trees that he's leaving now to put more buildings on the property that's just below it, and then puts houses on the top, which causes more roads and more flooding. I don't know the exact answer. I know that right now he's trying to work with the neighbors and with the city, so I'm kind of torn one way or the other on this. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jeff.
I mean, that's where I'm struggling with too, is like, we want these to be win-win, but we know we need about, 5,000 plus units of affordable in our county based on recent assessments. So trying to find a balance of where affordable can be, but also still having that low density, I would lean more towards having the developer come back with a plan, because the wetlands issue and the fact that it hasn't been reviewed by the city staff, I feel like we're gonna have a gotcha down the road anyways, that it can't be developed anyway. That it's just concerning to hear about all the flooding issues.
Do you mean we're waiting on some study information?
Yeah, because didn't you say that it still had to have a review, and was there some DEQ issues?
So they are certainly going through their wetland, permit process with the state. As he mentioned earlier, as far as the city goes, our city engineer has been reviewing this extensively. I guess my comment was they still need to get that stormwater permit. It's a bunch of the, I don't want to call them the final details like they're, not important, but they've certainly already been studying all of the, stormwater on the site. They just will need to get that final permit. So the city staff has certainly been, reviewing it extensively already.
Yeah, Lynn.
I guess we're talking about two different things, right? I'm not sure the conversation around the berm and the water really has any bearing on the rezoning. So I'm reluctant to make it, we could certainly table it and have this conversation again once we have more information, but I don't think that's gonna change how I feel about the rezoning.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean. Yeah, we've got multiple things going on here. We have the rezoning, so that would also, just for clarification, Steve, that would make a square of LDR in the northeast corner of that area, correct?
Yeah, there's a little cutout there for the leg that goes out to.
Just behind that church, right? Okay. So we're cutting that off, kind of, right? If we were to rezone this to HDR. And then we have the issue of the driveway off of Country Club. There's concern there. However, at least in some ways, the bonus of that is that it's on the garage side of both of the houses. And then we have the wetlands that we're waiting on, right? And my thing is that I feel like the plan itself is not quite complete either. And I would like to discuss this again as opposed to making a decision tonight.
So I guess my question is, that driveway that goes to Country Club can be a full flow or a restricted flow drive?
It cannot be a restricted flow
It
because
has to be both ways.
it's over
Okay.
200 units.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. That's,
So can I ask another question then, as a follow-up to that?
Mhm.
So, say we get rid of that drive, does that make the entire site plan right now, as it currently stands, unbuildable?
Yes, you cannot have
One driveway.
this full
Right,
site
so,
plan without
yeah.
that driveway.
Yep.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
It would certainly cause issues for this site plan. The report that you have says from the fire department that as soon as they're over 200, they need that second access. So certainly revise the plan to be under 200.
Right.
so, okay, just, hear me out on this one. If we didn't rezone to HDR, that one part on the top, and the plan had to be redone, would there need to be a second drive? If it had under 200, if it had 199 units?
Right. It would not have to have a second full access
So
driveway.
that's right. The fire code doesn't require it. It becomes a little bit more of a planning question, when we talk about access and, through movement and, trying to avoid, dead ends. So I'm sure we would still have a discussion about that. But in terms of the fire code, it wouldn't be required if it was under 200.
But there would be the potential that future, it's an LDR and it still has access off Country Club, that they could still put another drive-in for LDR development
Mhm.
in the same location or the north.
And they could use both those access points off Country Club. And then the driveway would go off of that other drive to that house that's on Country Club.
Mhm.
And they could have two entryways and make it a horseshoe or however.
Right.
So,
There's potential for that as well.
on another note, the stormwater study that the city's doing, they're not allowed to have water runoff of their property that they cannot retain, or what, how does that work?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to speak for our engineering staff, but I wouldn't describe it as that you aren't allowed to have water, run off of the property. You certainly, we require, the water that's created from the runoff from a site, from the impervious areas to be captured and controlled in certain methods, whether that's infiltrating into the ground or being held in a detention pond for a while and released at the proper rates. But it doesn't prevent, any water from, going onto somebody else's property. I guess I'm always really careful to describe it that way.
Is that something we could get more clarified from that department?
Sure.
I mean, I think there's too many questions to vote on it tonight personally, but I'm one person and this is a whole board. And maybe it might be a good idea for us to table this until we get a wetlands report, an answer on stormwater. I mean, these are things that more pertain to the rezoning and to the other, to the site, mostly to the site plan, but a little bit to the rezoning itself.
So
for me.
if you could just speak to that a little bit and how those questions about the site plan play into your decision about the rezoning.
For me?
Sure. And anybody else?
I don't see just a little flag deterring 100% of the HDR being, it makes it a little island of LDR, so that's why I don't like to see that. That's not for me. But I also see the whole length of the HDR drops down right there as well. And I wasn't here for Udo. I'm newest board member, so I didn't go through all of that 3 years of struggle and looking at every block and all of those things. So I don't have the background there. So I'm just looking at it for me as HDR is going to get built here a little bit more with someone who's willing to fix it. Doesn't sound like a bad thing. So that does play into some of my rezoning. Yes, I'm not supposed to look at it, what's being built as to, anything can be built there. Anything can be built in the LDR too that conforms to the code. Plus we can also go to the, ask for a change or an amendment to a site plan to make it a little more dense. And we've changed things before. So I'm a little torn, and I see where you're coming from as not wanting to have that and going through the whole Udo process and looking at things, and this is what you wanted to have here. But it looks like there's a lot of low density in the HDR along that strip already. So that's what makes me, it's like, so why didn't we just make the whole thing LDR because 5 lots or 4 lots are single family when it looks like a whole subdivision is low density right next to it. It doesn't really make sense 100%. Why wasn't this all LDR then? This whole subdivision that's here, why is it HDR?
Because the Hearthstone Court lots are actually a lot smaller than the ones on Country Club, so there's much more of a buffer there.
Okay.
And then also we considered the fact that the HDR lot would come most likely off of 16th Street.
Yep.
So you have Medi Lodge right there, it's a facility, but it's a high-density housing, right? Like you
Right.
have a lot of people coming and going.
Oxford and Stratford Way and Abbey Court, all of those are high density.
Yes.
All those are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the reasoning there, and I think we all had an appreciation for mixed use neighborhoods, right? So we were trying to have a variety of housing in one space.
Okay. All right, that answered my question. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Well, this is a tough one. I'm not hearing a motion from anybody, and I can't make one, so.
I motion to table it.
Which one are you pertaining to? Jeff, you have to go in order. So letter B is
So
the rezoning.
And Jeff, can I, just as a point of order from
Yeah.
parliamentary procedure standpoint, you
Yes,
probably, if you're going to do this, you probably want to make a motion to postpone, because a
Okay.
motion to table means that it has to be the next thing we take up at the next meeting. Motion to postpone makes it more indefinite in terms of the time. You have to set a specific time with a motion to table, if I remember correctly.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
For that clarification. I motion to postpone the site plan, personally. I think I could vote on the zoning, the rezoning.
Let's do the zoning first.
Okay.
I move to deny the request to rezone.
Support.
We have a motion and we have support. Mallory, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, I can. All right, the motion is to deny the rezoning. Box,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Owens,
No.
DeBlock,
No.
Bosch,
No.
Genova,
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right, so sorry, this doesn't happen often. So it's a 3-4 vote, 3 for yay, 4 for nay, from having the motion to deny, so it does not pass. Correct.
All right. Correct.
I don't believe
There
that means
still
it
is
gets
no
rezoned.
motion.
We are still in the same
You need a
position.
motion to rezone.
We're still on letter
Yes.
B.
Yes.
So I move to rezone.
I'll
With the
support,
plans.
I'll support that.
With the plans as drawn.
can't, but you
No,
can't-
not the
you
site
can't
plan.
do it
This is
that-
only the rezoning.
Yeah.
All right. Mallory, you can do roll call?
All right, so the motion is to approve the recommendation of the rezoning. DeBlock,
Yes.
Genova,
Yes.
Box,
No.
Owens,
Yes.
Raymond,
No.
Bosch,
Yes.
Anderson.
No.
All right, so now it's 4-3, motion to approve has passed. Correct?
All right.
I did that right?
Yes,
I'm asking.
you did.
All right, thanks.
All right. Moving on to the site plan.
I'm going to move that we approve the site plan with all of the staff recommendations and extreme consideration to improve drainage from the neighbors.
Approve drainage from the neighbors?
Yeah. In other words, when he builds his.
I'd rather postpone it till we got more answers, personally.
I think
But
those
you've got your
answers-
motion out there.
Well, Steve, is that viable?
The-
Approve drainage from the neighbors?
Improve. I mean,
Okay, just,
I think. in
I'm
other
just
words,
asking
they're
a
all
question.
working- We're all working for, what are we waiting for? The
okay,
city,
we're good.
the city stormwater drain.
Anyone support for that motion?
I'll support it just so I can discuss it.
Okay.
Get it done, get it into a position. Again, sorry to be all parliamentary procedure on this, but that's the next step in order to actually be able to have discussion on the motion. I guess I'm curious, Dave, if you're looking for something other than city engineer's report that they've met the stormwater requirements that the city has.
And I also believe that the developer wants to work with the neighbors, and I think if it takes a 3-foot ditch on the edge of the property and then a 15-foot high berm, it'll work.
Are you asking the developer to mitigate problems that the adjoining property owners currently have, or are you saying you want the stormwater requirements to not make those worse? Make those worse.
Right. Well, yes.
So may I ask a question of staff?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Steve, is that not what our stormwater permitting process requires already.
I would agree that that is the requirement of the stormwater permit.
Okay, so that if we put a requirement on the site plan that they get their stormwater permit, that's going to the best of the engineer's ability, to be able to say to the developer, what you were requiring you to do here is not going to increase the problems that the adjoining property owners are going to have.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I'm looking at you too, Nate, and as a real estate attorney, my understanding is, I am not speaking as an attorney right now, is that you are not allowed to just build a berm and have the water flow into your neighbor's basement and not be responsible for that.
Right.
That you have an obligation to deal with the water on your own property.
I know that fully,
Yeah.
but we also know that the neighbors currently have issues with flooding, and he in fact could aid and abet fixing that.
Not entirely.
Not entirely, listen, and no guarantees, but take it. You
Yeah.
build the ditch a little deeper and it sucks water out of the adjacent property.
Yeah, I think there's probably some additional engineering items that would have to go into that to make that work, just knowing the elevations of
Yeah.
things around here. So I think we just need to be a little more clear about that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure we have the legal ability to be able to require a developer to mitigate a problem for adjoining properties that currently
But
exist.
the 15-foot berm falls right into that same category, and we are in fact approving it with that happening.
I don't think the berm falls into that category at all, because there's already issues that are going on. So that's not developers' responsibility.
Well, you know it's not his responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, Steve's got something.
Okay.
Sorry, not to belabor it any longer, but I guess I would just say, the berm is part of their project, and so that would be something that the city engineer would review to make sure even that is meeting the
Right.
stormwater requirements.
Right. So we have a motion
And a second.
and a support.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the motion that I'm supporting,
Okay.
and what we're going to be asked to vote for. Dave, are you saying that you want to include in that requirement that goes beyond the stormwater discharge permit? A water mitigation strategy, are you requiring that as a condition of approval? Something beyond stormwater discharge?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I am. And I don't think I'm gonna get much, I wish I could have a conversation with the developer, but I can't, so.
No, but the developer can hear us right now.
know
I'm
that.
pretty sure anyway
Watching us.
that he can, and that he's watching it, and he's listening, because my problem is, I agree with you, I'd like to see that happen. I'm not sure we have the authority to do that. I'm not sure that we can legally, and Steve, you may know more about this than I do, but I'm not sure we've got the legal ability to be able to make that a condition of approval.
That's why I asked if it was viable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have a concern about that as well, and just even the, vagueness of it, it's really gonna be difficult to even, tell the developer what we're expecting.
Yeah, because we currently have and Dave, I'm speaking to you about this. We currently have a process where we have the city engineer looking at the stormwater movement on the property.
Yes.
And is required as part of the process to tell the developer what the developer needs to do in regard to the water on the property and movement of the water around the property and off the property. And I did not sleep in a Holiday Express last night, so I'm not going to add to what I think that the city engineer might have to do with that. Their city engineer is the expert in that area.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, if that's the motion, I'm going to vote against it. But if the motion is that they're required to get the stormwater discharge permit and do what we normally require in a project like this to protect the rights of the adjoining property owners, I'm likely to vote for it, because frankly, I think that this developer has worked very hard with the property owners, made a lot of changes at the request of the property owners. I love the idea of the berm along the north edge of this property. I think that actually protects and would likely, in the long run, increase the property values of the property owners to the north versus some other type of development happening there. It protects that property from being developed anywhere in the future.
Sure.
And I like that idea, but I don't want to vote for a motion that I don't think we can legally do.
Okay.
So, That's where I am.
I would then remove that last sentence, and I think, so how does that become, that becomes, approve?
Approve the site plan as recommended by staff with all of the requirements that staff has put in place.
Yes.
Okay. That I will
I
second.
think I just said that.
Okay.
That you supported?
I'm supporting that.
All right. Mallory, can you call a roll, please?
Yes, the motion is to approve the site plan with conditions as listed in the staff report. DeBlock,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Owens,
Yes.
Raymond,
No.
Bosch,
Yes.
Genova,
Yes.
Anderson.
No.
Motion to approve passes.
Okay. We are good then, correct?
Can I just say
Yeah,
something?
Lynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to just clarify, because I don't think the motion actually indicated it, but we weren't actually approving the rezoning. We were recommending that it be sent to city council, so I wanted to make
City
sure
council
that that
has to
was,
approve it.
Yes.
that was clear to everybody in the room, that there's another step.
Yes. Thank you for
Correct.
that one.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. If you have questions, you are more than welcome to talk to Steve or email him, or Mark, who's sitting right here in the audience. Mark Vanderploeg with the city. If you have questions, you can talk outside, or you can email them at a later date, or from your phone right now. Moving on to the next item. Thank you, everyone, for coming out, and for the applicant for the presentation. Communications and petitions, scheduling of public hearings. There are none. Communications from commission members? No? All right. Communications from staff?
Sure.
Yes, Steve?
So just real quickly, certainly interested in your feedback from the joint meeting, so
If you could all please have your conversation in the hallway, we'd really appreciate it, because we are still on camera and having a discussion.
If you've got some ideas for, future joint meetings, certainly would be interested in, sort of ideas. That joint meeting is an ongoing effort that we're gonna be doing, so I guess I just sort of throw it back at you if you've got some thoughts or some ideas about, topics you'd like to cover. So I guess I wanted to throw that out, and I know I tried to confuse you with the non-motorized transportation plan that we're working on. Hopefully I clarified that. The stakeholder meeting is March 17th, and the open house is March 29th. That's all I have.
Steve, I would love, and I emailed you some kind of housing innovation joint session where, changes in housing materials. There's a lot of new things happening with housing related to not just your typical house. So maybe that's a nice joint session with us and city council to look at some of those trends and be prepared for them.
Thank you.
All right. Is that what you were looking for?
That's what I'm looking for. Keep throwing them at me, email's fine, whatever.
All right. And keep your emails coming on updates of other trainings and stuff, too.
Will do.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Well
second.
then. All those in favor, say goodbye.
Bye.
You guys are gonna.
Oh, I knew it. When I saw those people, I told my wife it's gonna be late.